How to make a woman's vagina more pleasurable, sensitive, and even orgasmic during sex with a partner. Watch this if you struggle to feel much during sex. If you already feel, then you can feel even more. And if you're a man, this is how you give amazing vaginal sex to your partner. In my practice of working with women and couples for over 20 years as a sex coach and a sex therapist, I've seen a huge number of women opening more sensation, pleasure, and even vaginal orgasms during sex with these 4 things, often transformational. There are 4 main components that you need to activate the vagina. You need all of them. The first one, changing the movement in the vagina. Not the most important one, but the most essential one. Men typically possess 2 techniques for penetration. One is what I call rubbing the vagina. The other one is what I call hammering the vagina. Men do this because of ignorance, because they don't know what else to do, or even worse, from bad teaching, because somebody online told you that this is what women want and you are going to make her come this way. Let's not be surprised that the live, sentient space of the vagina doesn't come alive with the stellar techniques of rubbing and hammering. Best case, she'll enjoy it, but she could have felt a lot more. Worst case, which is true for most women actually, this kind of movement desensitizes the vagina, loses the feeling, in the long term shuts down the vagina more permanently, and often it just hurts. Problem number 1, aggressive penetration, not the movement afterwards, but the actual entry. There is no benefit, even for women who enjoy fast movement, to fast entry. You will always make more sensitivity if you enter slowly. For many women, fast entry is a shock, discomfort. You are immediately shutting down all her feelings for the rest of sex. It's gone. Problem number 2, people think they need to stimulate the vagina, rubbing the sensitive areas. Don't stimulate. Like I said, it offends the vagina. The vagina goes, excuse me, I'm not an object. Don't stimulate it. The movement is interacting with the vagina like a conversation, interacting with the sensitive areas. And don't do anything monotonous for more than just a few seconds. Changing your movement from one mental mode to another really brings out a lot more sensitivity. Problem number 3, just doing too much. You need to raise intensity gradually from smaller movements to later to bigger movements. Retains a lot more sensitivity. Problem number 4, wrong areas in the wrong order. The vagina has 2 sensitive areas, one at the front, the whole clitoral complex that extends into the vagina, and then one at the back, the cervical region, which is a completely different area, differently innervated. And then there's like some stuff in the middle that supports it, yeah? Initially, you do not engage the back. You are interacting at the front and in the middle with really nice interactive movement that engages those areas really well. Only later, you start engaging the back. Potentially, the back is the most powerful sexual energy in the whole of a woman's body when engaged correctly, but completely ruinous if you don't do it carefully or you do too soon. Now, it's true that a lot of women later in the intercourse will enjoy harder or faster movement after the vagina is correctly activated and the sensitivity is fully engaged, but not before. Some men think that women need hard and fast sex always. Look, don't fool yourself. There are 2 scenarios here. One is she feels no sensation at all, she's given up on it, she's just getting off on the act and the thrill. Happens more often than you think, and you could be married to somebody for 10 years without knowing this about them. I've heard many cases like this in my practice. And 2, she's so desensitized already that only this works, and by following my advice, you can reverse this loss of sensitivity, and she can feel much more than this. I have seen a massive difference. Often, literally, I'll work with somebody who has never enjoyed vaginal sex before, and suddenly it turns out she was never broken, everything is there and works beautifully. It's just the typical movement that men learn and use is absolutely awful. Now, if you think that you've just watched the most important part and you can now check out, you will get nowhere. You have to stop treating the vagina mechanically and focusing only on the movement. The most important parts are coming up. So to give you the simple explanation of the overall problem first, both men and women treat the vagina as a physical tube, a mechanical organ that you use, where you stimulate buttons to consume a pleasant sensation. And you can't see much of a result because the vagina doesn't like being treated like this. You can do this with the clitoris, but the vagina is a completely different place. The vagina is a truly live, sentient space. It's a deep space inside the woman's being. It's deeply wired into the woman, into her feelings and emotions. There is no other place I can think of in a woman's body that is more of a sentient being. The vagina feels It opens or closes, it feels loved or it feels afraid, it responds or it goes numb. And depending on all of that, it will give you more or less sensation. So you need to stop poking it for pleasure. Both of you during sex need to activate that live space more holistically to create real sexual energy there, real aliveness, which can then expand into sensation, pleasure, and orgasmic waves. So the second component is mental presence in the vagina. This one is completely on the woman's side. I always say your presence in your body is your most important sexual technique. You can make your sex so much more pleasurable with it, much more than with any single physical technique. By presence, I mean really learning to be in your body, to really connect with the feeling in this moment, to really listen to every sensation as much as you can, really appreciating it. And in this case, all of that in your vagina. This is an active skill from a woman, an active sexual technique. And women on the whole are catastrophically bad at this. They are too much in their head, and this is why they can't feel much. So why is it so important? Because first of all, when your head is full of mental noise about something irrelevant or about sex itself, you're feeling self-conscious, you're worrying about how your partner feels, you're under pressure to come or to get aroused. This mental noise clogs up your nerves, shuts down your feelings, no sensation. It's a static that you can't feel anything through. If you're actively listening to the sensation in your body with a good developed skill, there is a double positive action. First of all, you're reducing that mental noise, so you're lifting the static and the fog. And secondly, by listening to the sensation, you are really enhancing and magnifying everything you feel. With a longer term practice, you can make your vagina permanently more sensitive and responsive. Now, a tip here that people always overlook: the initial phase of penetration, as I described, where the movements are still not the strongest and the biggest, that's the most important one, where you need to be tuning in and exploring your sensation. That is where the sensitivity is trained and the vagina has a potential to become permanently more sensitive. There are good studies that show how much mindfulness increases the sexual sensation, even generic mindfulness. So that's something you can do already. But myself, I prefer to work with my special set of practices I've developed of specific mindfulness adapted and modified for sex, which I think are a lot more effective. Now, the next component, very important: emotional connection inside the vagina. Not emotional connection that you have with your partner in your daily life together. Physically, through the vagina, in this moment of sex. The vagina is emotionally wired. By doing this, you are turning the power on, or the power remains off. First, from the man's side, like I said, don't stimulate the vagina like a device. You are shutting it down. You've got to love the woman through her vagina. You've got to project that with your movement. Now, from the woman's side, even more important, which women often completely don't realize, it is an active act of connecting with your man emotionally through the vagina. There are two directions here. One is receptive, how you're really receiving your man and opening to him. The other one is outward, how you're making love to the man through the vagina. Both are essential for sensitivity in the vagina, which is completely lost in mainstream sex advice, and that's why a lot of women feel nothing. Some orgasmic experiences in the vagina are even only possible through doing this practice. Some women ask, how can I do this with a man I hardly know? Look, either you can and nothing is stopping you, or you can't, and if you can't, what are you doing having sex with him anyway? Now, this component is so powerful. I always take women through it in a very detailed way, and I've often seen that women can go through this to a completely different level. Not just more sensation, more orgasmicity, but the whole vaginal space becomes so alive, so different. There are magical things happening there, new dimensions that you couldn't describe. So please don't try to rub the vagina more. Pay attention to this component. Please like this video and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. And I want to ask women, please share in the comments what rings true for you from all the things that I said in this video, from your positive experiences and from your negative experiences. Please reflect. This is your chance to tell men. Before I tell you the last, probably most important component, understand, because the vagina is so holistic, it's really about the whole of sex becoming great lovemaking for the woman. I've seen many times that the vagina is like the last piece of the puzzle to open up when the whole of sex is done right. Stop just fixating on the vagina. Make the whole of sex work better, and you will often see that the vagina became alive indirectly as a result of that. If you need further help, you can look into my holistic sex course, which is for both women and men. I teach every part of lovemaking on the level beyond typical sex to your greater experience. And in the course, also, by the way, I give very specific detailed techniques for all these 4 essential components. These are my perfected special recipes from 20 years of research with clients in my consultancy. So women can master them for your vagina and men can master it for their partners. And the 4th and final component, arousal. I keep banging on about it, but it is the essential truth. More so than the clitoris, the vagina doesn't get aroused from stimulating the vagina directly. I've taught so many women who, when they receive proper arousal through the body, their vaginal sensitivity goes from 0 to 100. They may have never enjoyed vaginal sex, and suddenly the vagina is super sensitive and sometimes orgasmic, arousing the woman's whole body through real contact, real energy of your bodies, real loving of her body, creating real sexual energy in the woman's body. That is what you need, not some mental excitement. It just has to be really good and sexual, not some wishy-washy, stroking. Many women can't find an effective way to do that, unfortunately, and that's why a lot of women feel nothing. After arousing the whole body, a really good arousal of the clitoris, that brings more into the vagina, then optionally fingers inside the vagina if you can maintain the same 3 components. But if you just hack at the vagina, then not, you will shut it down. Most men, unfortunately, need to totally ditch their fingering technique. It is mortifying for me to look at, and that is why she feels nothing. Making a sensitive vagina is not a recipe that will work immediately today. This is a practice. All these components, when practiced consistently, will gradually increase sensitivity. You have to start where you're at now, and it will grow with time. It's like getting fit. It won't happen in one day. But with all these things, you will already enjoy sex so much more, whatever happens. Orgasms. Yes, you can make the vagina really orgasmic by following what I teach. But vaginal orgasms are often misunderstood. I will make a video on that misunderstanding someday. Vaginal orgasms are basically when the vagina is so alive and sensitive, it reaches a point where it is so vibrant, it becomes orgasmic. You don't do the vaginal orgasm directly. You work on the sensitivity that will cross over into the vaginal orgasm. I don't claim this will help all women. There are many causes for not feeling much inside the vagina: hormonal, physical, traumatic, but there is also a huge number of women who think they are broken, but they're perfectly fine and they can have a great experience in the vagina. You are just not doing what the vagina needs. I hope you now know what you need to change, and happy changing. And if you want an extra video on vaginal orgasms, then there is one here for you.